You ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure? Okay, I forgot my thought, but I'm back, right?
Okay, yes.
Hey guys, it's Lisa from 7 Spice Life. Thanks for tuning in. Today I have a really special treat for you. I am going to be cooking with Parisa Parnian. Is that how you say your name?
That's right, you did a great job.
Thank you, thank you. She's Persian, I'm Assyrian. Parisa is currently in LA, but she hails from Arizona. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Parisa.
Okay, I'll try to do it in a nutshell. Currently live and work in LA. I'm a self-employed creative. These days, being a self-employed creative is a hybrid. So I'm a visual artist, an illustrator, a designer, but over the last couple of years, I've been channeling a lot of my passion into cooking and hosting Persian suppers and salons in Los Angeles. If
you guys don't know what these kind of like underground dining or pop-up dinners are, they've kind of popped up all over the place recently, but hers are unbelievable. And if you want to find out more about them, I'm going to put the link in the description below, so be sure to check that out, along with some of her other design links where you can access a lot of her creative material.
Creative.
Yes. What are you making? What are you going to make today?
Okay, so I'm going to make a classic rice dish that, if done correctly, it is a real showstopper. It's the Tahdig rice, which means that it's a rice that you cook in a special technique, so when it's ready, you flip it over and it has a rice crust.
With the Tahdig, I am going to make a stew, which we call shorba, which they call
xoxo.
There's a lot of Iranian crossover. There's a lot of Persian influence in our cooking. So I'm making a curry stew or a curry shorba with chicken, which has some Indian influence, but it's a totally traditional thing that Assyrians make all the time, and I think it'll go great.
So curry happens in Assyrian cooking?
It does, but we use it as an accent, not so much as the basis of a stew.
Okay, because there, as far as I know, there is no curry-based xoxo in Iranian cooking.
Well, there you go. I want to bring something new that'll also complement the Tahdig.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry.
I know. Let's
we
start
better
cooking.
start cooking because I'm excited to eat this with you.
She is slicing up a Yukon Gold potato. And why are we using Yukon Golds, Parisa?
Okay, the reason we're using Yukon Golds is because they have a very thin skin. And also, you told me something I didn't know about it, that I intuitively chose this, but what about Yukon Gold makes it good?
Yukon Golds fry up beautifully. You'll get this rich, crusty, golden potato, and that's what she's after here, is like that crown jewel crust.
Exactly.
So,
so I just want to show about the thickness. It's like somewhere between 1/8 and 1/4, thin. You don't want it too thick because then it'll take too long to cook.
Okay.
And you don't want it so thin that it breaks.
Or burns.
Or burns,
Okay.
Good point.
We're making a dish that's served to a large crowd.
Yes.
It's just gonna be us eating it, but I think we can handle it.
It also freezes well.
It does freeze well, and so does the curry, honestly. Yeah. But here's the thing, it's not fancy.
No.
It's rustic food. It's like down-home, cheap
nice
eats.
Peasant food.
It is peasant food.
I love peasant food.
As we say, village food. The stews cook quickly, but the rice does take a little TLC. That's if you want the Tahdig style rice.
Yes.
Otherwise, just make plain old white rice. But
yeah.
The point is, cheap eats, but they're so damn good.
So nurturing. That's why I started making Persian food on my own when I moved to New York for design school a million years ago, because I wanted to come home and have something that reminded me of like love and a big hug.
I mean, when you eat food, it transports you because all your senses are being exposed, right? So it's a connection. Okay, so she sliced up the potato.
Yes.
It's just one she used. Grab the pot, would you? We went with a non-stick.
Yeah.
And it's a green pan, so it's free from like all the toxins. I love them. If you're not using them, you should, because the toxins on non-stick are pretty bad.
Yeah.
But we want non-stick here because when you flip it, tell us why.
Yeah, you don't want to, the whole point is you want to be able to flip it and get this seamless crust, right?
So tell us how a traditional Persian rice is made, because I know Assyrians make it, they just throw it in the pot with some water until it all evaporates, steams up, they fluff it up, and it's ready to go. But what's the other way to make it?
Yeah, so Iranians have two ways to make rice. They have the easy way, like you talked about, the one-step way. But we're making the fancy version, the more celebratory version. It's 2 steps, and it involves making the Tahdig crust.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the first thing you want to do is and I've already done it, is you want to soak your rice and rinse it out a few times until the water runs clear.
Okay.
And I know a lot of cultures do that, but I don't actually know. You do too, but I don't know why. Do you know why?
I do. You should always buy high quality basmati rice, but that cloudiness you're seeing is that excess starch rinsing away. And when you rinse away all that excess starch, you get these beautiful individual, long, fluffy grains that are all separate in this harmonious bowl all together.
So this has already been rinsed. I'm gonna put it in the pot.
You do want enough water to completely create a rolling boil with that rice, right?
Yes. And you don't want there to be too little water, because then your rice it'll cook, it'll absorb whatever water is there and it'll already be dry. And you want it to be like pasta, where you're going to be pouring the extra water out.
Okay.
So this is about how much I put in. It's kind of coming up to where the handle is. There's about this much space left through the top.
Okay, so we'll give you guys the timing, and all these increments and everything in this recipe can be found in the description below. So make sure you click that so you get all these delicious recipes we're making for you today.
Okay, so now that I've filled this up with water, the only other thing we want to do before we start boiling the rice is add some salt. Because we're going to be dumping the water out of this, I'm going to put more salt than I would if it was going to be the one-step rice, where everything that's in the pot's going to get absorbed in the rice. I'm going to start with 1 heaping teaspoon. And actually, you know what? Because I do everything intuitively, but now that I'm doing it, I think you are correct. I think 2 teaspoons of salt in this is a good amount.
Okay. So you guys see that she started with 1 teaspoon, was feeling it, because it's almost like you're salting by hand.
Yeah.
She can feel that it's not enough. Correct. Don't worry, it's not going to be too salty, right?
No.
We're dumping that water out, and what remains will be a perfectly salted rice.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna set this to boil, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna start by putting it on high. Okay, so it's been about 12 minutes and the water is boiling, and if you can see, the rice is starting to raise to the top. This is when I'm gonna take a spoon and test it out. Do you see what's happening with the rice? It's like really bubbling to the top right now. This is when I'm gonna turn it off because it's getting very intense and it's probably ready. Just to make sure, I'm gonna just test this. It's not crunchy at all, it's chewy, it's al dente, but it's not fully cooked.
Okay,
that's
perfect.
I'm gonna pour it in a sieve or a colander. Make sure the holes are small enough so the rice doesn't fall through.
They say saffron's weighted just like gold is.
Yeah, it's really precious. Fortunately, it's very light, you know. So what we have about equivalent of a 1/4 teaspoon of saffron threads here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make saffron water, which is gonna go into the crust of the rice. But in order to make this into saffron water, the first step is to use a pestle and mortar and to grind these threads into more of a powder. Yeah, it's pretty good. So
just a few grinds until it turns into roughly like a nice powder. Okay,
so let's get our glass. So we have some boiling water now. And I'm gonna start with a tablespoon at a time. Keep doing more. I have 2 tablespoons now. And because I don't want our crust to be too wet, I'm gonna stay at this much.
Okay.
2 tablespoons.
2 tablespoons, that's so beautiful. Look at it.
So it's gonna continue to diffuse into the water. I'll put this here.
And it definitely has an aroma, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like an
Here,
earthy.
Do you wanna smell it?
It's so distinct. We've drained our rice.
Yes.
What's the next step we do?
We're gonna make I'm gonna call it the batter for the crust. I'm gonna start with 1 cooked cup of rice. Put it in the bowl.
This is the parboiled rice, right?
This is the parboiled rice. And I can already tell I'm gonna need more. So I'm putting a 2nd cup in here. That looks about right. So 2 cups of cooked rice. I've had some experiences in the past where I've been too generous with the amount of yogurt I put in. And then when even if I've cooked the rice for a long time, when I go to turn it over, it falls apart.
Okay, so again, it'll be too wet.
It'll be too wet.
Okay, so the key here is to not get too much moisture to that bottom crust.
So I'm gonna start with 1 heaping tablespoon. I'm gonna mix it and feel how tactile, like what the texture is. So the texture you want is like a tacky, sticky rice. You don't want it to get watery at all. As I'm kind of just eyeballing the amount of rice in here, when I think about the diameter of the pot that we need to cover, I think I need to add more rice to this. 1/2 cup more, approximately. Let's see if that does the trick. If not, I might add even another 1/2 cup. Let's see. You know what? I think this is going to end up being a 3-cup Tahdig.
Okay.
So I'm going to add.
So 3 cups cooked, because we cooked 2.5 cups of dry rice.
Yes.
But as it cooks up, obviously the volume's
expands.
more.
So now that I've added more rice, I'm going to also add another tablespoon of yogurt. Get that mixed in here.
Do you want to hold up the bowl so everyone can see?
Yeah.
So you see the consistency still looks like it's rice with like a touch of yogurt in it.
A touch of yogurt.
Okay.
It's really just a binder. So now that I'm feeling pretty good about the consistency, do you see it's sticky now? But it's not drenched in yogurt. So the next step is to add the flavor and the coloring of the saffron water. Look at how gorgeous that color is. So I don't want this to become too wet, so I'm gonna start adding the saffron water conservatively.
And you're using 1/2 teaspoon?
1/2 teaspoon to start.
Oh, look how pretty that is.
I can already tell I can use more because that just soaked right in. That's another 1/2 teaspoon, so we're at 1 teaspoon, 1.5. Okay, I'm starting with 2 teaspoons. Let's mix it up and see what happens.
Okay, and lift it up and show everyone what that looks like. So
Look
she
at
said,
that color.
"Oh, it's beautiful."
It's so joyous, isn't it?
It
Such a happy
is.
color. I see that there's still like some whiteness in here, so I'm gonna add just like another 1/2 teaspoon. So the next step is we're gonna start compiling all the elements of the Tahdig. All right, so I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon of ghee, if I can get it out there. Okay, so you've put the ghee in the pot on high, and now I'm gonna very carefully start putting the potatoes down. And you can see that it's very hot because the potatoes are already starting to sizzle. Be careful with this step, you don't wanna burn yourself. So I'm gonna just start dropping in the potatoes. I tend to start in the center and put them around like this.
Those nails come in handy for this stuff.
Yeah, actually, there we go. So that looks pretty good, look.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Now I'm gonna grab our rice batter and I'm gonna start putting it in here. We're not gonna be cooking on high the whole time. In fact, we're gonna go the opposite and start cooking very low, but this is just to start browning the potatoes.
Okay.
So Lisa just handed me some sort of a nice flat object that you can do it with. So I'm gonna press gently down and pack this in. The next step is to put the rest of the rice in. So we're gonna just do this. We're gonna put it in here. These are some of the little technique things, okay? I'm gonna make sure the rice is broken up in case any of it's in clumps. And I'm really touching it gently. You don't wanna be too forceful with this because you don't want your wooden spoon to start touching the bottom crust that we just gently packed into place. We don't want anything to disrupt that. You're gonna gently start pushing the rice into the middle to create a mound. There's a steaming action that's gonna happen now. I have a 1/4 cup of water and I'm gonna sprinkle this on top. to create a steaming action. And then I'm gonna take the lid. You take the lid, you put the cheesecloth or whatever fabric you have on top. It has to be cotton though, a thin cotton. Okay? You turn it around, holding all of this, and you kind of just twist it around like this. Make a little handle, and then you put it right on top of the pot, like that. Okay? Now, I'm gonna explain why I'm doing this, but timing is essential. Now that you've gotten to this point, I'm gonna change the temperature. I've changed it to a low simmer, okay? I know you don't normally use the word simmer for rice in this case, but what we've just created is we're gonna have this rice with the mound, the water added, and this extra cotton fabric. We've created a special steaming situation. So not only is this rice going to be crunchy at the bottom, but the rest of the body of the rice is going to be fluffy and steamy. And normally you can't get both in one shot, but this technique creates this really great thing where you're going to have a super hard, crunchy outside, but a really fluffy, moist inside.
You're making me so hungry. I want it right now. And so now we're starting the chicken curry to go with that beautiful rice.
And I can already smell the spices. It smells so good.
Smells so good. We went ahead and prepped the chicken. Okay, so I have 2 tablespoons of 7 spice. What?
That's your brand.
Yes, it is. I had about 3 tablespoons of curry. What is that? I need to look at my notes. A teaspoon of ginger. I've got a teaspoon of turmeric and a pinch of cardamom, which is about a half a teaspoon here for 8 pieces of chicken. And these are all going into the pot along with some tomato paste. I lightly sprinkled with those increments. I don't need to like add more like that plus. I just sprinkled the chicken with all of the seasonings minus the tomato paste. Okay, so this chicken is ready-ish. I'm gonna put it away so I can prep the rest of our ingredients.
Yes.
Do you wanna open the fridge for me,
Yeah,
Parisa?
absolutely.
And then we can start cooking everything else. Now that the chicken is in the fridge, we've got about 1 large onion. If yours are smaller, use 2.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of onion in this dish. I've got 2 Yukon Gold potatoes. You can use russet potatoes too, it doesn't matter. And I've got 4 cloves of garlic for that pot we're gonna use. I'm gonna start with the garlic. I just wanna smash it.
Or spank it.
Spank it, yeah. Be naughty to it. You don't want, some people will chop it up and use it. I'm just using it to flavor the stew.
Okay, so it would have never occurred to me to just smash it and not take the time to chop it up to flavor the stew.
Well, when you...
That's great.
Yeah, I don't want to bite into large chunks of garlic. These
Okay.
you can pick out before you serve it.
Great.
I just want it to, like, infuse.
Okay,
yes.
got it. Okay.
We just want to infuse that stew with that essence of garlic.
Cool.
And I'm going to roughly chop the onion. I don't want it pretty.
I want to watch your chopping technique. Oh, this is so professional.
It's nothing serious.
Look how fast you're doing it.
Really?
That's
Is it
incredible.
fast? Cool.
That's fast.
Just be careful. Tuck your fingers in. Tuck your tips of your fingers into the knuckles.
Yeah, you're a fast chopper. That is a fast technique. Right
You
there.
know, I've been doing this a while.
You're a professional, darling.
And you're left with the root.
Oh, that goes in the compost bowl.
Yes, it
because
does.
she composts.
Although I recently read that you're not supposed to compost onions.
Why?
But is that a thing? Can someone please tell me? If you
Why
know
not?
whether or not you're supposed to compost onions, please
Why
leave a
are
comment.
onions being left out of the compost pile?
I have no idea, but I had never heard that before.
Is that what people who go to culinary school learn to do?
Well, I never went to culinary school.
But is that like if I went to culinary school, is that how I would have learned to chop an onion?
It kind of is a knife skill, so I don't know.
Somebody has knife skills.
Where does that go, Parisa?
In the compost bowl!
In the compost. Okay,
Okay.
we've got these beautiful onions chopped up.
How do you chop up your potatoes? Is it different?
Well, for this stew, we want large chunks.
Yes.
Would you grab me a bowl, Parisa?
I would love to.
Thank
I'll be
you.
right back. We're here for the nourishment because we are Middle Eastern women who just do things
Love.
to nourish others.
Yes.
We're
Okay.
just full of love.
Or full of shit, either way. I'm just kidding. Okay,
Here we are.
we'll cut that all
Yeah,
out.
of course, of course.
Onions in a bowl, garlic smashed.
I want to see how you chop your potatoes.
Okay, well, there's no safe way to chop a potato
Really? It's
because
dangerous?
of the starch. I'm just kidding. I put them
Because
face
of the
down.
starch? What does the starch do?
Well, it clings to the knife and it creates like this glue.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just cutting them in half lengthwise and then quartering them.
Gotcha. So they're big chunks.
Yeah, and then I'm just gonna quarter those. So 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4.
Gotcha.
Boom. Okay. You
Very
want like hearty chunks, but you don't want them so big that
You can't put one piece in your mouth.
honestly, it's all about how you want it to look. Like sometimes the big chunky potato chunks are beautiful. I
Okay.
want like a bite of potato with each bite, you know?
Gotcha. Okay.
3 potatoes. I started with 2, but I added another one because you want like a good ratio.
Yeah.
So 3 potatoes, 8 pieces of chicken, and then all the rest of the
Smashed
stuff.
garlic.
And now we can start cooking.
Yay.
We are going to add peas to this at the very end.
Oh, okay.
So they're not out because they're frozen, but really potatoes, peas, onion, and chicken. How easy is that?
And you know, those are flavors that a lot of different cultures use.
They are.
Indian culture, South Asian culture use potatoes and peas, but so do Irish people.
They do, and this
And
is
British people.
influenced. It's obviously influenced by Indian cuisine.
It must be.
But this is a very traditional Assyrian household dish that we eat all the time. We are going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the bottom of a heavy pot or cast iron Dutch oven or something in the middle. I'm using this because it's large enough to hold everything and it'll braise everything really beautifully. So we're gonna let that heat up. It's on medium, slightly over medium. And I want it hot enough to sear the meat. And you can see here, we're gonna put the seared meat here and then we're gonna put it back in when we're ready to stew everything. You want the oil shimmering. You don't want olive oil smoking. You can set your whole house on fire. Skin side down. You hear that gorgeous sizzle? You don't want it like crazy sizzle. You're not like grilling. And you don't want to crowd your pan this time. So I'm gonna do like 4 pieces at a time. And I'm not trying to get like a dark golden crust. I just want them just a little golden. It's prettier. Okay guys, I'm flipping these over. Look at that crust on the bottom. That's good. And see, they're not like crazy caramelized. We just want to sear them a little bit. That one looks great. They all look great. So about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. And I'm gonna add another leg here because it looks like it can handle it.
It can handle more leg?
It can always handle more leg.
Nice.
These are seared about enough. I don't need to go crazy. And my lovely associate is going to let me take these off and add the next batch. Add the next batch and let them sear just like that first batch did. Okay, our next batch is done. And we are immediately going to add the onions to this oil. And am I the only one that absolutely adores the smell of cooking onions?
No, you're not. I'm obsessed with that smell, and I have a feeling other people are too.
Okay, so let those saute, and you see these brown bits? That's like pure gold. And we are going to let those build, and then we're going to pour some liquid in there. And when we do, we're gonna scrape the bottom of the pot because it just tastes so good. And we also are gonna add the garlic now versus with the onions.
Oh, interesting. Tell me why.
Because if you add the garlic too soon, you'll burn it.
True that.
And
True that.
burnt garlic,
I've done that.
what does it taste like to you?
Bitter.
Bitter. That's right. So I just added the garlic. Here are the potatoes. And we're gonna let them fry up. And I'm not adding salt yet. Do you know why?
I don't know what. No, seriously, I don't know. Why would you not put salt in it right now?
Because we want these potatoes to turn golden.
Okay.
And when you add salt, the salt draws out moisture. A little science tidbit, and when you draw out moisture, you're adding steam to the pot. We'll add the salt right before we add the chicken back in to like stew everything.
Okay. Are you making it hotter or colder?
I'm making it a little hotter because we want those
caramelized.
Yes, we want them to caramelize.
Yeah.
Okay, the potatoes have been cooking about 5 minutes, and you see how they're like golden in some spots. That's what you're looking for. So we are going to now add the chicken back in. And don't be scared, just add it all back in with the juices. And now you're going to add the spices and some salt. So it's a lot of spices, but we want them to all cook off. These are all the same spices I was telling you about. Just about 1 to 2 minutes. You don't want to go crazy here. You just want to cook off that like raw spice taste. Look how pretty that looks. We're going to add our tomato paste and cook that off too, because tomato paste can get really raw also. And just get it incorporated in everything.
So when you put the tomato paste in, you don't add any extra liquids at this point?
Not yet. You want to cook that tomato paste a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Because if you add liquid in too soon, it has this like raw flavor to it, almost like flour if it doesn't get cooked all the way.
This is a new technique for me. I'm going to try this.
Yes. And look at all that gorgeous crust that we've created on the bottom.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Now comes a part that, so 1 to 2 minutes, that's all you need with the tomato paste. You don't want to burn the tomato paste either. Now comes the forbidden part.
Ooh la la, I love forbidden things.
We are going to add about
a
quarter cup of wine.
Living large, living wild.
And I used a Spanish Grenache because it plays really well with the curry flavors. And don't ever pour a wine into your food that that isn't drinkable. Because that's
good
just
to know.
sad.
That is sad, but the practical part of me would be like, oh, I can't drink that wine. I'm going to put it in my food. But
no.
But the food needs delicious quality wines too.
It does. So you can see it's turning into like a dark brownish red. And we've cooked the wine off for about 30 seconds. That's all you need. And it's about 3 cups of chicken stock. And we're going to add water. And that's going to be about 2 to 2.5 cups. We just want to barely cover the chicken. See how some of it's poking out? We're going to kind of swirl everything around and start scraping the bottom of the pan. Guys, do not skip the scraping step. It is amazing. It gets all that flavor that's concentrated.
This is important, and I think a lot of us don't know that we should do this.
It's amazing. Scraping the bottom of the pot where all that caramelization has happened, that's where all that flavor bomb is. It's almost like how the Japanese talk about umami.
Yeah.
There's a ton of flavor going on down there. So. Okay, so this looks great. See how everything just is poking out like bobbing for apples or something? And we're gonna keep this on medium-high and then reduce it as soon as it starts to boil. So stay tuned. Okay, it's boiling, so we are going to turn it down to medium-low. We just want a gentle simmer, and we're going to cover and cook about 45 minutes until the chicken is like practically falling off the bone. All right, so our Tahdig rice has been cooking for nearly 3 hours. Because why, Parisa?
The longer the crust cooks, the thicker and crunchier and more fabulous it will be. So this is one of those things you don't want to rush, and just let it do its thing for as long as possible.
Even the dog's wondering where the food is. So, and the curry has been cooking about an hour, and it's ready. The meat is like falling off the bone. The stew, all the flavors have melded together, and it's on low, but I'm going to turn it off at this point, and we are adding our frozen peas. It's about 2 cups. I'm gonna add them in, and she's just gonna gently stir those peas in. The reason why we turned off the pot is they're going to cook enough simmering in the hot stew, just enough so that they're still bright green when you serve the dish. Go ahead and give it a nice gentle swirl, and you see all that beautiful color of the stew and curry, and the peas are just barely cooking, just enough through so they're tender but still retain their beautiful color. That's it, guys. Let's serve this because it looks fabulous.
Okay, it's time to see how this tahdig turned out. I generally tend to gently tap the bottom to help loosen the crust. And then this is where we do a little choreography. I'm gonna flip it over.
Here it goes. Brava!
And I heard the thump.
Here's the moment of truth. Wow, it looks amazing!
Yes! All right, I'm gonna crack this tahdig.
Cheers!
Ooh,
Oh.
yeah, nice thick crust. Look at that.
Do you hear that crack? Oh my god, it's gorgeous.